The June 16th meeting of the Housing Trust calling us to order. We have a person in attendance for the Zoom folks at home and an attendee as well. We've got a couple of things that are on the agenda tonight that we're going to have a light update and then passing over. MHP, which I know got a hold of us today. The engineers haven't started their work, so we're probably going to be a couple of weeks before we get some concept work and things to really dig our heels into there. So we're going to have to fly by that. The Matt, our select board rep, is in England this week on work. So we have the LIP update for the Eastland projects, which were signed at the last meeting. We don't have a sufficient update for that as well. So we're going to be in a holding pattern there. I would suggest that everybody take a look at that meeting and go over what it is. In the packet is the actual LIP information for the actual on the select board side anyways. Just review it. What I wanted to do tonight was have them go through it, understand where the select board was at with it, what they would need to trust as far as helping move these projects forward. We're going to have to wait for them on that. The GSX Upton Street project, which everybody probably caught a little bit of if you watched the select board meeting, but GSX is kind of handing off the projects to Beacon, which is a large company that does a lot of work in the Commonwealth. Right now, we had an initial meeting, but the grant proposal is kind of on hold until we rough out what the new plan. Beacon has a lot of experience in the state, and they've got quite a few projects that they've done. They're very much, I don't know, like sandbox projects, so to speak. So they have a certain model which they use. There's a couple key differences between the two companies. GSX is, typically something that they build and then they offload it, and I would say it's a little bit more higher end, or it tailors to a little bit of different demographic, whereas Beacon's projects are typically much more like, they're going to be but much more inexpensive, but they use a lot of resources already that the state has provided to them. So they kind of have these models that they use that fits, that template. Say we're at square one for that, but the initial steps here are the select board have to sign off on the transfer between the two. So the P&S can't be transferred internally, it has to go through a review process. So from what I'm aware of, the attorneys for both sides are going over. Or is, where we want to do with the grant proposal right now. Into it. So there's something of substance there, at least from a learning perspective, but we got to see how everything kind of turns out with the project itself before we bring it back to the trust and say, okay, well, here's what it is now. It's a completely different project. We need to take a look at this and understand it a little bit better. Just I'll keep everybody posted on that. And also there was some correspondence went back and forth between Eric and the Grafton Housing Authority. He's going to bring us up to speed on it.
You guys hear me? Just want to check.
Good enough.
So a couple of meetings ago, I just floated by like the general idea of having funds available for certain populations in town. When they housing insecurity, lose their housing, and they qualify, for affordable housing dollars. So there's a ton. Reached out to the Housing Authority and Jim Gallagher and chatted about it because they have and basically an identified list already of people basically what Jim and I have kind of been spitballing is, how could we help that population? There's a couple segments of people that have come up as potential people that we could help. One being people that are on the Housing Authority wait list, but have not gotten housing yet. So that's a little bit more challenging because anybody in the state can apply for housing. And I don't know if our dollars have to be tied to people that already live in Grafton, or obviously at the very least would live in Grafton with the housing. So we're still trying to figure out that one, but there's two other populations that are much easier to identify. One is are getting evicted in their current residence and are getting authority housing. So in those instances, the eviction may have to do with not paying. And if a landlord or go after the rent that is owed, if somebody's in financial hardship, it's never fun to have debtors coming after you as well for rent. That was something we were thinking about, is like we could help these people out that are getting into housing, paying past due rent, which would qualify under CPA dollars. There's a whole lot of stuff that has to get worked out here. Eligibility criteria, how would we administer this? General idea is something I'm interested in. And then the other population was, there are housing authority tenants that do pay. But they can even fall behind on rent there as well. In which case, their status with the authority can become jeopardized. So same thought there, assistance that's preventing them from paying.
So, Eric, you're breaking up a lot right now. Like, I'm hearing nothing right now. Still got nothing. Completely cut out now.
Speak up loud and picks up on you.
Conversation and try again.
Did you hear any of that?
So most of that, we heard like 70% of it. And then right near the end, it was completely cut out.
Can you hear me right now?
That, yeah. You're not hearing anything now.
Owl and
Talk at the owl.
and project your voice.
You can see when it picks you up because the yellow border around us.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Like when people speak in like short, loud sentences, it's not a problem. It's just when there's like continuous conversation for more than like 10 seconds, it decides it doesn't want to do it anymore and just goes back to bed.
And now we got nothing again.
Right here, so we have the sounds. Essentially what's going on is Eric is talking. I think after he gets like 2 minutes into a sentence, it fades out or it times out, looking for another,
Oh, there it is again.
I just keep talking and,
Yeah,
and then they can watch the recording.
that is
Okay. Great. If not, then I guess we'll just have to watch the recording. But yeah, anyway, so those are some of the populations that Jim and I talked about. We could identify for assistance, typically with rent, back paid. And then I am going to keep on this path and try to figure out some other, groups of people that we could help. I've talked to Lisa Kelly before in the Council of Aging about, she from time to time gets, seniors that are being removed from their housing for one reason or another. There's not a lot of affordable housing available on a short-term basis. So that's a population, I would think the town would want to support. I certainly want to support. So it's not just housing authority people that I'd be looking at. And I guess when we actually have audio on a future meeting.
Yeah, I think this is something that we wanted to try to get accomplished anyways with the reserve fund, that we were prepared to offer assistance for a whole variety of different needs.
Mhm.
And it could extend past that into, first and last payments on getting them into new housing, or into the affordable housing that is actually, for sale. So helping with down payments and things of that nature. Where it becomes expensive is when you have to do this out of town. A rental assistance program that we had to use a consultant for was incredibly expensive. Staff, we have a quick update on that. But it's something we should have in over the next 6 to 8 months, or at least be ready to fund it and have some type of program in place, because Pine Street, if the LIFT projects go through, there's going to be, 150 to 75 affordable houses or rental units. And then I guess I'll go talk to Cindy tomorrow and make sure that our normal meetings are always in conference room A, which shouldn't be hard to do because we're supposed to be the second Thursday of every week. Then we can always go back to. So, we have some meeting minutes tonight that I just want to do before anything goes nuclear. So I appreciate Dan catching us up on all the past meeting minutes we need to get caught up on. So we're pretty much there, right? As far as we have to March anyways. How much more are you going to need to do?
So I think there's maybe 3 or 4 left. Matt has been helping me a bit with them. I think he was hoping to have some ready for tonight, but some select board stuff came up and that kind of took precedence. So I think for our next meeting, we'll be either completely caught up or almost completely caught up.
We have a subcommittee meeting minutes on here. Has everybody had a chance to review the November 18th, December 9th, January 14th, and 24th meeting minutes? December 9th of 2021, January 14th of 2022, and March 24th, 2022 as drafted.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor by roll call. Dan Kusher?
Aye.
Frisbee?
Aye.
Aye. And Bruce is an aye. We're going to save the other one for, if that's our subcommittee meeting, we have to have a subcommittee meeting to do that. So we had some input from people in the neighborhood and some people actually not in the neighborhood of 25 Worcester Street to put together a forum or at least some collaborative efforts once we get the new engineering concept and designs and kind of the project that MHP is looking to help us put forward. So we can solicit some more input from the neighborhood. That public forum process, which if I'm correct, MHP will also help us with and provide us with staff support to answer some of the more in-depth questions that we might not have the answers at the development that they're looking to do and some of the other things that can be done on the site. So it's kind of moving over to them completely, which they're financing, of course, for us with the grant that we just have to wait a little longer for them to. Problem is, it pushes us into the summer. So I want to know what you folks want as far as the summer schedule is concerned. Second Thursday is what we like to meet at, but we set this kind of midway through last summer when we finally get the last of our. So I know summer slows down for everybody as far as, people going on vacations, like school committee typically doesn't do much during the summer. Select board, although I think they're going to press on through this summer, but a lot of summers passed. How you wanted me to approach the summer. And if there's any big vacations or commitments that throw some stuff out there just to see where everybody's at. The other thing is doing, public forums and things like that during the summer are typically things that are very well attended. Want and to wait till July and have that first meeting there. And then set a date, even if it's in late August, early September, when the kids kind of go back to school and schedules become a little bit more. We have a little bit better fix on the timeline. I was hoping to have a little bit more back from MHP tonight. Moving forward with it, so that's a good sign.
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, we're hearing nothing right now. But so you were kind of, Bruce, you were in and out while you're talking, and just want to make sure I got like the gist of it is you want to know what our thoughts are for summer scheduling, and particularly around scheduling something with MHP to have more of a dialogue with the public about 25 Worcester Street. Is that what you're asking right now?
Yes.
Okay, I see a thumb from Eric. Okay. So I guess for me, I'm around, so I'm fine, continuing our second Thursday and even, adding in a couple as needed, or, doing whatever other people need to do. And yeah, for the, I feel like we do need to do a little more, conversation about 25 Worcester Street. And so with MHP, are they coming back with something that's like focused around that frail elders type of housing, or are they coming back with various options? Kind of a broader thing.
So, Bruce, can I address that part? If you guys can hear me.
Yeah, just go ahead.
All right. So a couple different things. Just on the summer schedule, I'm around, as far as I'm concerned, there's no guarantees here in these positions. I've got another 12 months of doing this. I don't know what happens beyond that. I really want to see us either get this done or substantially done between now and then. Not really interested in taking any breaks. I go on vacation, but we can do this remotely so long as the audio is good. As far as MHP, what they're doing for us, they got back to us, Laura Schufelt got back to us on May 13th and said that her MHP's house engineers, as she calls them, can do some preliminary work for us. And what they're doing is they're preparing up to 2 conceptual sketch plans for potential senior housing residential developments. Those include preliminary location and sizing for proposed buildings/uses, identification of major site access and circulation patterns, and development summary on each option based on assumed unit sizes with the residential footprints. This also includes one follow-up meeting with the client to review the plans. What it doesn't include is, specific design options. So again, I want to be clear with people. If you think what you're going to be seeing, when and if Bowler Engineering comes in with MHP is finished product or what this is definitely going to look like, that's not it. So I think at the next meeting with them, we start talking about, okay, is this a direction we want to send them? And is there, a frail use thing that we want to pursue here? Once we get past that meeting, then we start talking about setting up, I think, forums with the community, but that's not until the summer. That's not until the fall anyway, at the very least.
I don't have a problem with keeping on the schedule that we have in the summer. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's fine.
Wanted to make sure that there wasn't going to be inconvenience. In years past, it has been a problem for us. But good. I don't want to spend too much time going back and forth on this stuff because nobody can hear each other anyways. So expect to have a second Thursday meeting at 7:45 in conference room A. I will go talk to Cindy tomorrow and make sure that we book the room where it's booked for us in perpetuity. The assistant position.
Yeah, so we've advertised for the assistant planner position. It's fully funded, so we won't need a contribution from the Affordable Housing Trust. We restructured the financing to be fully sufficient. But we have advertised and have not yet had success in finding a candidate.
All right. So I'm going to wrap this one up. What I'll do is the primary things that we need to get discussed with relative alacrity is the endorsement of the LIB proposal that they already signed off on, but we should be endorsing as a trust, and that dialogue, and then hopefully we get a little bit more back as far as timelines and things like that from MHP. As soon as I get those two things together, I'll post another meeting either by next Thursday. But if we do, I'll set them up and see if we can make sure we get a quorum. So don't be surprised if I send out a little Survey Monkey via email and make sure. That being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Justin Hollander has his hand raised.
Sure.
Yes, hi, thanks for recognizing me. So I just wanted to come back to 25 Worcester Street. I know you moved on to the next agenda item, and I appreciate you raising the idea of a public forum. So the last meeting that you guys held where that 25 Worcester was on the agenda, the way you explained it, Bruce, is that MHP asked you to complete a questionnaire, and one of the questions was how many units? And there was a lot of conversation, and a lot of people were asking questions, and I I for one, was talking about the same thing Ed was talking about, which is how important it is to get this thing done. And I insisted how it would be really useful to consider what's legally allowed, which is the 8 units when you fill that questionnaire out, because we no longer are able to go through the appeal, the state process. So can you tell me, Bruce, where are we with that?
Submitted to MHP, I went through a minimum and maximum essentially. And I spent a little bit of time with emphasis on what's allowable there by right. Should we, some of the concerns that I brought up, over the past year of kind of reviewing what we wanted to do on this particular site. So I think I touched on a lot of the public comment we had in the past. For us to get some more imagery and then have an actual forum there. They are aware of our local zoning. They are aware of some of the past meetings that we've had from a trust perspective. So hopefully they'll take those things into account. I don't know for sure that they have because we haven't actually seen anything back from them.
Yeah, but just to follow up, to be clear, my conversations with MHP, they said that they're taking the direction on the number of units from the trust. So this would be a great opportunity to bring in this kind of a public forum, not to wait until kind of down the road where there's sketches drawn and scaring people away. I think this seems like this is the time to kind of get consensus around the community to move forward with a construction project.
I would tend to disagree with that approach. I think as far as the frail housing and the direction that we're looking at, plus type of environment, we need some help from them. Works in the state as far as development is concerned, who they can partner with to make it a viable project. There's a lot of concerns on there that we want them to come to us and say, these are the things that work. You can have, they're going to show us traffic patterns and things of that nature, and we can dial it at that point either way. And there's sufficient funding in there for us to have several iterations and for us to have a dialogue of a back and forth. But I want the trust members to see what actually is viable there, and they're going to lend the expertise to us.
Bruce, can you hear me?
I can, yeah, I can.
Just real quick on that note, it's interesting. I just read a study recently by a housing director from a nonprofit. I can't remember which one it was, but they mentioned the city of Newton did something different in terms of public input with their affordable housing efforts. Instead of polling the people in the neighborhood, what they did was they put together a focus group of people who might be beneficiaries of the sort of housing that their affordable housing efforts put together. That might be, for me, as effective, if not more effective, than polling people who we know are just going to be anti-density to begin with. That's obviously statewide how we get to the place that we're in now with our housing crisis, because neighborhood to neighborhood, people who show up to these meetings don't want any housing. So obviously the input that you're going to receive is for as little housing as possible. So it might be something that we consider if we're going to be doing community outreach, putting together a targeted focus group of the people who might receive these services, and in this case it would be seniors in the area, to see what they think that they would like. Just food for thought. I'm sure MHP can point us in the right direction when we get there.
I would really like to see the core, the substance of what actually would work there. What I don't want to have is to go a whole nother year going through this circular pattern where we don't know what we don't know. And we get there, we talk about it, and then we figure out that it's not a real substantive proposal.
Right.
I don't mind having several outreach meetings where we talk in detail to the people who are going to be looking at the buildings on a day-to-day basis. Talk about aesthetics and things of that nature, especially when we want to tie in the ZBA on this discussion. And we've had some preliminary discussions with Mr. McCusker, and we're going to broaden that a little bit So we're putting together a project that we're not just gonna say, this looks well for us, let's move it over to ZBA, and they get a whole nother. There's a couple of things that I think we should do, and we'll get a little bit closer. You know, Justin, we're gonna make sure we have abundance of get-togethers. Because understands in our environment what they're looking for, because you're all gonna show up to ZBA as well when the variance process starts and that public hearing process starts. Same. So we can overlap and they have their jurisdiction, they have to do what they have to do. But I don't mind doubling up on a lot of this stuff so everybody's aware of what's actually, you know. Anybody else have anything?
Nope.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, Ms. Frisbee,
Frisbee, aye.
Aye.